So welcome once again to the Clear Admit Inside the MBA Admissions Process. This is a webinar where we're going to hear from 5 leading MBA programs and learn all about their application process. Let's get into some quick intros before we dive into the questions we have. I'm going to moderate today's session. My name is Graham. I'm the co-founder of Clear Admit. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming our guests here. Let's go through and do some quick intros. So first up, we have Paige Davies, who is a Senior Associate Director for Operations over at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Hi, Paige.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Paige Davies, currently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually on Tepper's campus. Been here for about 6 years and excited to get to talk with you all today.
Yeah, welcome. We're also going to hear today from Jordan Blitzer, who's the Director for Admissions and Strategic Projects at Columbia Business School. Welcome, Jordan.
Nice to see everyone. Thanks for being here. As Graham said, I'm Jordan. I've been with CBS for 7 years now. I just had my 7-year anniversary. And I am tuning in from New York City. So hi to everyone from New York.
Excellent. We're also going to hear from Allison Jameson, who's the Assistant Dean of Admissions at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, thanks, Graham. Happy to be here. I've been at Fuqua for 18 and a half years in admissions that whole time, so pretty much born here. But as you said, Assistant Dean of Admissions, I'm excited to share with everybody today. Our campus, of course, is in Durham, North Carolina, but I am joining you today from Cincinnati, Ohio. I saw Columbus in there, so greetings from the Midwest.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that Columbus pop up too. We're also going to hear today from Breon Ransom, and she is the Senior Assistant Director of MBA Admissions at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Hi, Breon.
Hi, Graham. Thank you for having me. Breon Ransom here at Georgetown, also a DC native. So hopefully if we do connect, I can tell you about some great restaurants where you can get some great food in DC, some great spots.
And I think we have a question about that actually later in the deck. You must have peeked ahead. And last but not least, I did want to introduce Stephanie Gamba, who is the full-time MBA recruitment and admissions officer over at the McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hey, thanks, Graham. Hey, y'all. I'm Stephanie Gamba. As Graham said, I'm the full-time MBA recruitment and admissions officer here at McCombs. I'm in Austin, Texas. Been with the team for almost 5 whole months. So I think I'm a newbie here, but super excited to talk with y'all today.
Excellent. So just a note about structure today. We have a handful of kind of roundtable questions. Schools are then going to talk about their specific application process and offer you some tips. And then each of our panelists is kind enough to be breaking out into, we're going to do some Zoom breakouts for Q&A at the end. So, and you'll be able to bounce around. So if you want to ask a question to one school, get your answer, and then move on and talk to another, you can do that. So stay tuned. As a result, we kind of ask that you hold on to your questions until the end. I know it's very tempting to post questions into the chat as we're going, but if you can hold on until we get to the breakouts, that would be terrific. Our first question, and I want to start with Paige, we'll just go alphabetically. So Paige at Carnegie Mellon Tepper, I wanted to ask you, when you need to spend only a little bit of time on the internet to see lots of speculation about the MBA application process and students suggesting that, oh, your test scores are worth this, or, your essays are worth that. How do you guys view the application, and is there a rubric that you're using where you kind of give a grade to each component of the application or a weighted percentage, or is this a bit more holistic?
Yeah, thanks. So we don't use any rubric when we're reading applications. We have a write-up that our admissions officers complete before it gets sent to our admissions committee. But since our process is very holistic, we don't like the idea of assigning someone a number on a scale because that doesn't necessarily speak to who that person is. One component of your application is not more important than another. We don't have minimums for GPA or test score or years of work experience. We also do offer a test waiver, and those applicants are just as competitive as those who submit a test. So ultimately, within your application, we're looking at everything and ultimately looking for students who can be academically successful at Tepper, have a clear understanding of their goals, so that we can help them recruit into their functional area of choice.
Okay, excellent. And I guess the second question I have for you is about your interview process, and just the basics here, like who conducts your interviews, Are they by invitation only? And what does the interviewer know about the applicant before they sit down with them?
Yeah, so our interviews are by invitation only, and they start pretty much at the beginning of our rounds and then go up until decisions are released. So we're continuously inviting students to interview. They are conducted by a member of the admissions team. So I conduct some of our interviews. Our executive director does some. Throughout our office. They're all internal. We do review your application prior to starting the interview. So you could get a question on like, hey, we noticed on your transcript, this semester you didn't do as well. Can you speak to that? Or can you explain a gap in your resume? So we do have access to all of that information as well.
Okay, very helpful. Jordan, let's turn to you. I would love to know the answers to these two questions, as they pertain to Columbia Business School.
Absolutely. So you'll probably hear a common theme across all of our answers, because I believe we all sort of take a holistic approach, but to sort of echo what Paige said already, we too sort of review every applicant holistically. So we don't really assign, a number or a rubric to a person. To Paige's point, I think she said it very well, it's very hard to put a number on a person. And so for us, each applicant that submits an application to CBS for any of our programs is evaluated by at a minimum 2 of our readers. So you're getting a couple sets of eyes on every application. We don't have a GPA minimum or a GMAT or EA or GRE minimum to be successful in our application process. We evaluate anyone who applies to us. In terms of the second question, we are a little bit different from Tepper in the sense that depending on when you sign up for your interview, it may be different who you interview with. So our interviews are conducted by current second year students, admissions officers, and or alumni ambassadors. So our interviewers actually don't read your application. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, so I'll sort of leave it at that. But you have the ability to schedule those interviews in a time frame that works for you. And they are conducted by a whole host of people here at CBS.
Okay, well, this couldn't have been set up better, because I think that contrast is really important, right? Different schools do this differently, and as an applicant, you really should do your homework and know going in. Like it's actually a really different interview if the person hasn't read your file versus if they have, and it's not good or bad. I'm just saying, you might think about the need to kind of share the full story with someone who hasn't read your file versus if someone's read your file, you can, maybe you're digging deep into specific things like Paige was mentioning. So that was great that the two of you have a different process to lead off here. Let's move on and talk with Allison at Fuqua. Allison, what are your thoughts on these two questions?
Yeah, I think very similar to what Jordan and Paige have said so far is about the evaluation. So I know you had kind of asked, Graham, is there like a specific weight that goes to a test score? And as everyone has said so far, there's not. It really is looking holistically at the application. So we do ask for the test score, GMAT, GRE, or EA, and then we'll look at as well your undergrad, any sort of master's program that you've done, if you've done continuing education, if you have an additional certification like a CPA or whatever. So that's all taken together to sort of evaluate academic readiness. So not a score assigned to it, but looking to get the whole picture of the individual. And that is true for every aspect of the application. And then similar to what Jordan said, your application will be read in its entirety by at least 2 members of the admissions committee. And then we all sit down and those who read your application present to the rest of the committee. So everybody gets to hear your whole story, which, yes, is time intensive, and yes, we think is very important to making the best decisions that we can make to get a diverse class who will be successful and who is motivated and who is a fit with the culture at Fuqua. As far as our interviews go, this is a new process for us this year. Our invitation to interview. We used to have sort of an open interview period, and we found that we were inadvertently creating a great deal of stress for people about, oh my gosh, I missed the open period. Should I have done that? So we are now doing it by invitation only. It is a rolling interview decision, and whenever you might get your interview decision, sort of as Paige said, from the time you submit up until decision doesn't mean anything. It just means that was the time that your application was pulled by the reader. And then our interviews, you have the choice of coming to campus. We'd love to have you in Durham, but we recognize that that doesn't work for everybody. So you can also choose a virtual interview. And then your interview will be done either by a current second-year student or by an alumni interviewer. There's no secret sauce to that. Those are weighted equally. The questions will be essentially the same, and they are resume-based interviews. So whoever is interviewing you will not have had access to the rest of your application, just the resume.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, and I love that you're talking about the fact that, multiple readers. I think Jordan mentioned that as well. As applicants, I feel like there's a lot of nerves around, wow, I've put in hours and hours into this process, and the school's going to just look at the numbers, come up with some formula, and then toss it aside or something. And that's not what happens at all. That's what's so wonderful, I think, about MBA admissions. I think most schools, I see some nodding heads here, most schools are reading the file at least a couple of times across the committee. So you get your fair share of attention from the admissions team. And then similarly, with respect to interviews, I think it's important to know that, each admissions team has multiple members, and the apps are kind of divided up. And as Allison was saying, just because someone gets an interview at the beginning of the cycle for these schools that roll them out, it doesn't mean that candidate was better. It just maybe means that, the person reading that week wasn't out traveling for the school and had more time to read versus the other person who gets back from a trip and is a little behind in their reads. So keep that in mind too. Do not stress, because we see that a lot, especially right now. People who've applied in round one, they're seeing interview invites come out and they get nervous. So keep that in mind, everyone. Let's now turn to Brian at Georgetown McDonough and hear how things work over there.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. So at Georgetown, it definitely is a holistic approach when it comes to definitely reviewing the applications. It is reviewed by the admissions committee, just overall the full admissions committee, which I am a part of. It's definitely super rewarding. I'm an individual who do not come from a quant background, so I look at that. So when I look at applications, I look at it as a story, from the beginning to end, like giving me that well-rounded information about that particular applicant, looking at like quantitative and qualitative aspects. When it comes to the test scores, I would definitely say there's no rubric that we do follow. However, we do like individuals to kind of revert back to our class profile just to see kind of like what those average scores are, like those GRE or GMAT or executive assessment scores. I'm not saying that that's what you have to have, but that is like a good guide to kind of go off of when you're kind of practicing for your test and, aiming for that day when you are taking your test, aiming for that deadline you kind of want to reach and thinking about like up and coming now. We have our round one at October 1st, and then upcoming after that for January is round two. But also even thinking about the resume, making sure you have, all of your updated like work experience there. We do have want like a minimum of 2 years work experience for our MBA program. Not saying that we do not welcome any individuals who have less work experience in that. Those applications go through the same review process as all the others. And a little bit about our interviews, it is invite only, and it's a great thing because we want to know more about you. Any individual who is admitted to our program do interview. It is an anonymous interviewer as well, so you will not know who is interviewing you. It could definitely be a student ambassador, it could be an alumni, it could be myself, it could be one of our deans. So you never know until you come into that conference room if you come to an on-campus interview or if you choose a virtual interview. Also, when you receive that invite, you have an option to kind of choose which style you kind of want to do your interview, whether you are able to come on campus. A lot of individuals do choose that because they want to see campus, just even getting that experience interviewing. And sometimes there may be some in-person events that particular day, so they can kind of do their interview and also kind of sit in and speak to students and things like that. But overall, invite only. And those invites, like interviews, I think that Paige mentioned this, that interviews, they actually take place up until the day before the decision is released. So, I know sometimes you guys can get a little nervous, like I didn't receive an invite, it's a week out, from the decision release. So, sometimes you get it and then it's like it happens in just a couple days, so you never know.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned, the class profiles that the school that you all publish each year. I think it's a nice, it definitely makes sense as an applicant to look at what is the class profile and to know that obviously there are people getting in below and above those numbers, but it's a good sort of ballparking. And as you said, if you're setting goals for yourself as set out to take a test or something. Let's turn to Stephanie. Thanks for being patient, Stephanie. What are your thoughts on these two questions?
Yeah, I think I can echo a lot of what has already been said with the holistic review process, with the class profile. I think when we look at applications at McCombs, we do kind of have three pillars that we're looking at from that holistic perspective. It's going to be your academic background, looking at test scores and GPAs and kind of that academic rigor that you've had. We're going to be looking at work experience, similar to what Brian said, like 2 years minimum, but that doesn't mean that you have to have a minimum of work experience or a maximum of work experience for any of our programs. Just kind of looking at where you've been, how does that tie into your MBA journey and why you're looking to get an MBA, and then what do you want to do after your studies? And then the last part of that holistic approach is really going to be the community. We want to know why McCombs, we want to know why you want to be here. We want it to be a mutual fit for both of us. So definitely looking into like our alumni network and kind of chatting with current students, which really brings me into like the second part of that question for interviews. When it comes to interviews at McCombs, it is a level playing field. Everyone has the opportunity to interview with us. So you actually get to choose if you'd like to interview or not. It's all optional. You do your interviews with a current second year student. So one of our students will be able to talk with you, and it's more of a chance of you interviewing them in some ways, like asking them about their experience, seeing how your interests in the MBA program fit with kind of what they're talking about too. And you get to pick who you speak with. So it could be somebody that is from your same hometown. It could be somebody that is studying the same kind of concentration that you're really interested in, or you want to go into the same field. Or maybe it's somebody that you don't know at all. And you're like, that just sounded like a really cool club. And maybe I would want to join that too in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really glad that I asked this because I feel like there are subtle differences across the group of you, even though there are some things that bind you together in terms of this holistic nature of the review. I do think it's also great, Stephanie, that you're underlining the kind of very nuanced nature within each section, right? So it's not a question of like, this is my test score, this is my GPA. It's, well, where did you go to school? What did you study? What other coursework have you done? I mean, there are all these different layers to it. So I just encourage people to keep that in mind. We're now going to move into the second part of today's session, and that is where each of you gets to talk about a unique aspect of your application process. And the goal here is for you to kind of explain, what's different about this aspect and to shed some light for candidates as to like, why are you doing this in your process, and maybe some tips on how they can approach it. So if you have an unusual style of interview or an interesting essay question, just shedding light on how you all sort of decided to do that. So we'll go back to Paige at Tepper, and yeah, just take us through something about, your application process that you want to share that's a little different.
Yeah, thank you. So at Tepper, we have a fairly small community. We're very collaborative, very tight-knit. And that really does start, at the application process. We have a very hands-on approach to our application, really getting to know our candidates, reading through their application before the interview. So, with that being said, right now you can go online and schedule a one-on-one appointment with any of our admissions officers or talk to a current student. We already want to get started with getting to know you. And then during the interview, you can sign up with any of our admissions officers. You'll be able to see who you're picking. You can look and see what their profile looks like. And then that admissions officer will follow you throughout your entire journey. They'll be your point of contact. They'll be the one calling you if admitted, the one helping you, with any financial aid or I-20 and things like that. Like that will really be somebody who, you're really able to get to know. And we just want to make sure that, our students really have a very personalized experience as much as possible throughout our program.
So that's great. I didn't know that actually about your process, and the fact that 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 there's someone on the team that kind of follows the candidate along. That's really interesting. I guess one question I had for you is, as you know, in your application, you have this 2-minute video submission, right? And it's a question about the candidate's kind of career goals. And I believe it used to be a written thing, and now it's video. And so I just wondered, what made you guys decide to move to that format of video? And then also, how does the candidate strike a balance between being overly scripted versus, kind of off the cuff when they're recording this thing? Because I'm sure a lot of people are nervous about making a video for an admissions team to look at.
Yes. We started the video essay, I think this is our 3rd year doing the video essay. And something with that, it has really allowed us to kind of get to know our candidates better, start to, see what their presence is like, their personality. And I think if you talk to any of our admissions officers, the thing that they look at the most or like really enjoy kind of looking at is the video essay, because you just get to know a sense of a person in a way that you just don't get on a written page. So when you're doing the video essay, you do get 2 chances to do it. So if you record it once and you don't like it, then you can redo it. But you really should be treating it as if you're sitting in front of an admissions officer interviewing. We're looking for you to be presenting professionally with well thought out answers. However, I would not read from a script. You can have talking points, similar to how you would maybe in an interview. You have a couple of notes written down, you can glance at those. However, ultimately it is coming off as more conversational than a scripted speech.
And I didn't know that you get 2 chances, which is great, so that people can get it right. That does make sense though in terms of the committee enjoying that part, because it's like your chance to meet everyone who's applied, or sort of meet them in a sense by getting to kind of hear them talk about their plans.
Yeah, exactly.
One other question for you about this: it seems like it's pretty focused on the short term. In terms of what you're asking them to talk about, short-term post MBA plan in terms of their function, industry, companies they may want to join. What about the longer term? Like, can people talk about that too? Or would you just say, hey, you only have 2 minutes, keep it focused on what you want to do right away? Or how would you recommend people balance that?
Yeah, so we are looking more specifically for your immediate post MBA goals. At Tepper, we want to, get to know how Tepper can help you achieve your goals, how you might be working with our Career Center. Since our students, they really start working with our Career Center before even stepping foot on campus. You'll submit your resume over the summer before getting started. So ideally, you'll have a well thought out post MBA goal so you can hit the ground running. You can discuss, your 5, 10, 20-year plan. But ultimately, what we are really looking for is for you to connect the dots between your current experience, your post MBA goals, and then how Tepper specifically can help you achieve those goals.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for shedding light on that. Let's turn now to Jordan at Columbia Business School. Jordan, what do you want to talk about with respect to your process that's a little unique, and any tips you have on it?
Sure. So I previewed it a little bit, and the initial question that we were all asked, like Graham said, sort of shed light on the fact that we all do things a little differently. But I wanted to hone in a little bit more on the interview process for us. Like I said at the beginning, we have a variety of folks involved in the interview process. And as I also said, we actually require that the interviewer has not read your application. And as Graham said, you've put in so much time and effort. It might feel a little counterintuitive that an admissions committee would then require an interviewer to sort of fly a little blind. And it actually is really intentional. It's because we want another completely unique perspective to have a very, easygoing, it might be stressful in the lead up, but an easygoing conversation with you that is highly behavioral in nature. So I get the question quite often, how do I prepare for an interview with a person and I don't know who they are, and I don't know that they've read my application or not? The answer is you spent a lot of time and effort, hopefully no tears, but time and effort writing your essays, putting in the work to really get to know the school that you're applying to. Lead with that and be authentic. prepare as if you would for a job interview. What do you like to do in your free time is a question that many of our interviewers ask. Again, it's very much meant to be something that is behavioral in nature and really conversational to get to know you in a different way than what you've written. I often, when I start my interviews, will say, I want to just share that I read a lot of applications, but I haven't read yours. And that, again, is by design. And it's because I want to just get to know you as a person, and be able to bring that to the rest of the committee, and say, like, XYZ I discovered was a beekeeper. Hopefully you've written that somewhere in your application. But again, I wouldn't have read that as your interviewer. Again, to really get to know you and how that weaves into what you want to bring to CBS and sort of your general MBA trajectory. So approach the interview with confidence and enthusiasm and open-mindedness. And I think someone said it at the beginning, the interview is not only a way for us to get to know you, but for a way for you to get to know us. So be prepared to ask questions, things maybe you've uncovered in your research and you want to know more about, given we don't align you based on interest or geography necessarily. All of our interviews are conducted virtually. I didn't mention that, for, access and equitability. You might be in Mumbai interviewing with someone in California. So you may not have that, same geography in common. You might, but you might not. So being sort of prepared to ask questions that are holistic about us and about a student or alum or AO experience is a helpful way to prepare, but really just be yourself.
Okay, good advice. I think that I want to pivot and ask you a question about something written that candidates have to do in your file, which is there's a couple of short, what I would call kind of short answer questions in the application form, and they're actually quite limiting. They're like 50 characters. So these are really short. And one of them is about, how do you plan to spend your summer between year 1 and 2? And there's another one about kind of career goals, I think, right? So these are really short. And then you have an essay in the application that's more around, kind of what I would call like a standard sort of career goals essay. And I just wondered, what do you see as the interaction between those two? Is the 50 character thing so that in your system you've got like a quick, summary of this is what this candidate's saying they want to do, and then you dig deeper with the essay, or what's the rationale behind that?
Yeah, great question. That's exactly it for the, I call it like a tweet, or I guess it's now called X, little blurb of what do you want to do. We obviously then expect you to significantly elaborate on that in the essays. And it is more for like a quick glance purpose. And we also, if you are admitted, then end up sharing that information with other offices across the school to be able to better prepare for your arrival. So we've actually had that for as long as I've been at Columbia Business School. We've had that, what do you want to do post MBA short tweet, 50 character section. What we added this year, so thank you for bringing it up, is how you want to spend your time over the summer. If you're applying for August, we do have 2 points of entry at Columbia Business School. So the question is a little bit different if you're applying for January entry, but specifically if you're applying for August, how you want to spend your summer. And our new Assistant Dean of Admissions, Trisha Bayoni, came from a long-standing career in our Career Management Center. So she's hyper-focused on ensuring that we are setting our students up for success. And what we were finding is nobody was really talking about how they wanted to spend their summer in the first essay. But she, and as a result, sort of our team have really started to think about, okay, we want everyone to be thinking about the full picture of not only how you're going to spend your time at Columbia, what you're going to do in between the 2 years and then beyond. And so we added that this year, and it's been getting a lot of good feedback, I'd say, from both applicants. It's helpful for them to sort of frame the entire experience for us, but then also from our committee. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I mean, it takes somebody from career services to come in and say, wait a second, let's ask them what they want to do their internship in as a, precursor to that first job post MBA. So a lot of, very, very smart question.
We had always sort of assumed but it's not safe to assume. So
no,
it's actually better for you to be able to tell us.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for shedding light on all that. Let's turn now to Allison at Fuqua. Allison, what do you want to talk about?
I think I will talk about my favorite part of the application. And Graham and I have talked about this a lot, but we have what we call our 25 things essay. So it's our first long essay where we ask you to use a numbered list and tell us 25 things about yourself. And it's not list 25 professional achievements or 25 academic goals. It is 25 things about you and what makes you who you are. And this is the one where, as I'm reading an application, I'm going to grab some chocolate chip cookies and my Diet Coke and sit there and just really get to know you. And that's what it's intended to do. And so it really helps us kind of understand what has shaped who you are, what has shaped your motivations, what kind of friend would you be, what kind of community member would you be, what are your passions, what are your drives, and we all read a lot of applications. This can really be a way to help remember somebody, like, oh, right, that's the guy who rode the unicycle through Manhattan at rush hour. Like you remember those things and you can really attach these stories to individuals. So I think it goes a long way to just sort of building that relationship as a reader with the person that you are reading about. It's a chance for you to really demonstrate your personality. So, we've had people that have tied each of their facts to that number on the list. So for example, 1, the number of siblings that I have, 2, the number of times I've broken my arm. So there are ways that you can sort of do that. You are able to include pictures. So if you want to embed photos, you're welcome to do that. If you want to put a link to, I actually had somebody who was a US military veteran who had put in a link to his high school performance of Grease when he was Danny Zuko, which definitely was a little bit different than sort of the idea you had in your mind as you were reading perhaps a military application. Tip there, if you are including a link to something, please give us the whole link, even if it's ugly, because we can't click in the application as we're reading it, but we can copy paste. But it's really up to you on how you want to approach it. So we've had people start with a list of 50 things and start to prune them out. We've had people who've written down 1 item a day for a couple of weeks to get this list, polling family and friends of what stories do you remember about me, whatever might work for you. Some of the bullet points will be a single sentence. Some of them might be a couple of sentences. It's entirely up to you how you want to create that. But they're tons of fun to read. And I think probably my best tip that may not immediately occur to you is that 25 things can feel like a lot of things to put together. So sometimes I'm reading a list and 1 through 19 are amazing. And then 20 through 25 are like, my favorite color is blue. I have 2 dogs. And it just sort of, peters out as you get to the end. So think about the way you put them together too, because that entire essay, although it is a list, can tell and should tell a cohesive story. So it's a ton of fun to read. We hear, at least from our students, that it's a lot of fun to write. So that's really my favorite part to read of the entire application as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if our audience knows this, but I figured I should add that when someone joins the admissions team at Fuqua, they are required to write this essay. So even the staff are doing this essay to get to know each other, and I think that's
Absolutely.
where it came from, actually, right?
Exactly. That is where it started. That's how we onboarded our staff, and we were like, wow, I never would have known that. I never would have asked Graham that question. And what if we asked our applicants the same thing?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of fun. I did want to ask you, you have another essay that is sort of about, the candidates are asked to sort of demonstrate how they hope to take part in the Fuqua community. And so I guess I just wanted to ask you, when you're an applicant and you don't know a ton about a school, I mean, you've read some of the boilerplate stuff on the website, how do you dig deeper and get the kind of details that are going to make that essay interesting for you all to read and show that the candidates kind of done their homework to sort of figure out their path through the program and how they want to get involved?
Yeah, and I think that the most compelling versions of that essay are not how many facts can you jam into that essay to show me that you've read our entire website, but rather how can you identify those top 3 things that are really of interest to you, resonate with your ideas, resonate with your passions, and how not only will you get that will contribute to you, but how you will contribute to that resource if you can be, sort of adding to the experience of everybody in the community. So, I mean, the website is always a great place to start, but if you can find it in under 2 clicks, you're probably not going deep enough. There are a lot of resources out there. We've got a YouTube channel. You can watch videos, you can attend events. But one of the things that I think is really a great thing to do is to connect directly with our community. So our admissions team is always available. We have office hours available every week that you can schedule a 15-minute chat with a member of the admissions committee. Our students and our alumni invaluable resources. And I think if you know someone who went to Fuqua, that's a great place to start. If you don't, you can reach out to our office. We can help make connections. You can send somebody a message on LinkedIn. I think you'll find our students and our alumni are very responsive and very willing to schedule a call or have a lot of email back and forth to share their personal experience. And a lot of times that can be where you find those things that aren't as immediately apparent on the website or in the sort of printed materials. So talk to us, I think is the number one thing to do. And then think about it. And then think about, does this really resonate with me? How could I go give back as well as take from that resource?
And yeah, great advice. Can I get a show of quick hands? I think that all of you make it so that candidates can connect with, students or alums. I mean, you all have different venues via your websites to reach out. Yeah, I presume that's the case. And there's a reason, everyone who's tuned in here, you should be doing that, because it will really not only help you find the right school, but it will make your application stronger if you know a lot about the program that you're seeking to attend, right? So whether it's when you're interviewing and you're able to kind of mention something that, is clearly was learned via conversation you had, that always goes a long way. Let's turn to Brian and hear a little bit about McDonough. What do you want to share about the McDonough application process?
Yeah, I would say like a great unique part about our application process. I just think applying overall for MBA programs is a unique process because I think everyone has a different journey and different way they like to craft their application to share with the committee. But I can definitely say our 1 minute video essay, and I know 1 minute is a really short time to really kind of get a lot in, but we this year the video essay is pretty much sharing with us what has recently brought you joy outside of work. And like I stated earlier, just thinking about the application, it's all about, okay, transcripts. It's all about your resume, all those professional things. So even thinking back past the professional, past the leadership, things that you've done, over time throughout your career journey. Just kind of hearing what brings you joy outside of work is a lot of fun for me, even though it's 1 minute. But I can say that's my favorite part of the application, honestly, because I like to hear about, if you just adopted a puppy and, that's the main thing you kind of been focusing on for the last month, coming straight home after work, so those things are really great. And sharing, about, a great travel experience or whatever the case may be, whatever brings you joy, we want to hear about it. And including even our other, new options for our written essays. We still have Georgetown Community in place, and that's one of our most popular essay options as well, whereas though you can kind of share your background, like your cultural, your educational, and kind of share how that'll contribute to the community. And then we also have Cura Personalis, and that means, care for the whole person is one of our Jesuit values. And you're pretty much sharing how you've exemplified Cura Personalis, just showing support to a teammate or a co-worker. And then lastly, the Achieving Excellence, which is, I think, is kind of like my favorite one, honestly, because you're pretty much highlighting the strengths and skills that you use to achieve excellence, whether in the workplace or on a team, or in that type of team setting where you can definitely help support your team. So I would say those are the main unique portions of that. And also as an applicant, I think it's always great for me to share that when you're applying to the program, especially if you are, if you know someone from the Georgetown community, whether they're an alumni or an MBA student or anyone else in the master's program with us, they can you can definitely approach our refer a Hoya process. Whereas though if they refer you to us, to apply for the MBA, you can get a informational, I would say, session with our associate dean, and you also get a discounted application fee, and you also get priority consideration for interview process.
Okay, wow, lots of really good advice there. I did want to ask you, so the video, which sounds like a lot of fun to watch because people have to answer something that gives them joy outside of work. It seems like a really interesting question. So that's kind of outside of work, and then the essay question that you offer has this like choose your own adventure. You have 3 choices that they can pick from, and so I wondered, do you think candidates feel as though they need to use whatever choice they pick to talk kind of something about their sort of professional life, or to use examples from their professional life, given that the video that they're recording is a bit more outside of work, or is anything fair game, or do you have a recommendation on that?
Yeah, I would say, thinking about the Georgetown community, like option 1, that's kind of focusing on like your background, just like your upbringing and what makes you who you are and how when you come to Georgetown, bringing your whole self, how is that going to contribute, to the community? But overall, with the Cura Personalis and Achieving Excellence, that does kind of revolve around the professional environment or more of a team setting in a sense. I think in our roles or whatever we're doing in life, whether we're a student or in school, we have those pieces that really make us proud, things that we've done, teams or I would say co-workers that we've assisted in a project, or I think we all have those highlights from our roles. So I think those are the places where you can really share those highlights, how you supported a teammate, how you've improved a process with your company to make it more streamlined or more efficient for, your team to, work more productive, smarter. I like to say work smarter, not harder, in a sense.
Right.
So I think that those written essays, do focus on more of the professional environment.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for shedding light on that too. Let's turn, Stephanie, you've been very patient. And as a surprise, we'll stay with you for the lightning round questions so that you don't have to wait to go all the way back around.
Cool.
But what do you want to talk about when it comes to the McCombs application process?
Yeah, so I think what I'd really like to highlight is also part of our video assessment process. So we do it a little bit differently where there are going to be multiple questions that students will answer versus just one video essay. So you get a couple of different opportunities within those assessments to talk about different achievements, to talk about yourself, to highlight different parts of your application. So I think one of the biggest tips I can give on the video assessments is our first question is, tell us about yourself. And more than anything, this is your opportunity to say anything you want about you, to highlight something unique about you, to talk about something that you love, your hobbies. This is the question to talk about your 24/7 self and not your 9 to 5 self. So I think when we read our applications and we have different eyes that are all over kind of the different aspects of what you're sending in, your writing, your resumes, your transcripts, it's really going to be the chance for you to highlight things that might not be part of your initial story or what you're looking for in your MBA program. So I can tell you there is a story that I've heard so many times since being here, and it is that someone was talking about their dog's name was Texas Toast. And we all know who Texas Toast is because that is a part of you, that is a part of your life. So I think when we do those video assessments, it's really an opportunity for you to kind of highlight other things in your application. That goes along with saying, like, think about your background and practice kind of talking to yourself at your laptop, because we don't really want to know that you're reading off of your screen because you have prepared answers. Like, we want you to feel genuine on what you're saying and how you're talking about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, this is really interesting because I'm hearing a bit of a theme across many of our panelists where, all the schools here have your resume, they have the facts and figures, and it feels like whether it's in the essays or the interview process or the video components, there's this desire to get beyond that and to know, like you said, more than just the 9 to 5 you. So appreciate you kind of explaining that. So this happens after they apply to McCombs, right? Like you submit the app and then you kind of have to log in and answer these video questions. And how long does it take to do that?
Yeah, totally correct. Students will get an email after they submit their application. You have about a week to complete the Cura assessments, so the video interviews. It should take less than 2 hours, depending on how much you would like to practice for yourself in that time
Right.
frame.
Okay.
Each video itself is 90 seconds. So when
Okay.
you put all of that together, you get.
Okay. And is there a set number of questions that you get? Is it 3?
I believe it's 7, with
7.
your
Okay.
tell us about yourself question.
Okay, so 7 times 90 seconds, but yeah, the prep work and thinking about what you might say to some of these. Okay, good to know. One last question for you. Your first essay asks for an ambitious goal or change that the candidate hopes to achieve. And I wondered, like, do you have any advice for people who are sort of, they're in a career, maybe they're a consultant and their consulting firm is going to sponsor them. And so they're just looking to kind of accelerate, and they're not looking to necessarily run a company or any advice when someone's goal may not seem like they're going to rule the world post MBA or something?
Yeah. Ruling the world sounds like a lot of time that goes into it.
Yes.
I think when we look at our essays, really the best advice is for y'all to think of a thoughtful through line. Like if you're thinking about enhancing your career, you can talk about your day to day and how your day to day plus the MBA is going to then increase what you'll do after it. That's really more what we're looking for. I think when we focus on only the big grand gestures, like maybe they're few and far between, but it's the little things in life that really can build up to a much bigger story of what you're looking to do. So thinking about how you've kind of moved through some challenging experiences or how something that you've really planned for in your day to day and connecting it to your future.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Thanks. So what we're going to do now is Stephanie will stay with you if you don't mind. We have these three lightning round questions. These are sort of fun, but there's also some legitimate admissions advice embedded here. So we'll just go through everyone. So we'll start with you, Stephanie. The first lightning round question is, what is the best place to eat on or near campus at McCombs?
Yeah, we have our Moon Tower Cafe, of course, in our building. You can get yourself some lunch or coffee in the mornings, but I would say there's a taco place that's on the edge of campus. Best tacos around. Very much enjoy them. They're great.
All right. What's it called? Do you know?
Taco Joint is the name. Yeah.
Taco joint. All right. Good to know. Next question for you is, do you have a piece of general application advice for today's attendees, regardless of which school they're targeting?
Yeah. Be yourself. Honestly, like I am so excited to hear about who you are as a person and how you can be a part of our community. That's truly the biggest piece of advice.
Okay, excellent. And then last lightning round question is in honor of Georgetown's essay question. What is something that you've done outside of work recently that brought you joy?
Yeah, love this. I think something that I'm actually looking forward to. October is a wonderful month in Austin. We've got the Austin City Limits Music Festival, so I'm going to that. And then we've got Formula One. I'm going to that. And we've got our UT Longhorns versus Georgia football game. So super excited for all of the joy that is to come in the next few weeks.
Excellent. All right, now let's turn to Brian. We're going to go backwards here. So Brian, what about you? What's the best place to eat near campus there?
I would say, well, on campus we have like a lot of student ran like places like coffee shops, and we also have a place that has a variety of food called Epiterian. That's exactly on campus, and then we have our student ran coffee shop, and then we also have a place called the Tunes, which is very much in the Georgetown neighborhood, right next to the university that everyone frequents. I'm talking about faculty, staff, students, and the people who live in the neighborhood. It's a great place to just go and hang out, grab food. I do recommend the salmon salad if you are looking for something great on the menu. But those are a few places that you can definitely have a nice sit down and chat and be comfortable.
All right, good to know if we make our way to Georgetown. What about a general piece of application advice?
I would say a general piece of application advice would be before you even actually start the application, make sure you are in touch with us, the admissions advisors, speaking with student ambassadors. Do not start your application. Well, I would say do not submit your application without speaking with someone within the community. Just to know like those tidbit pieces that may not be on the website that you may not hear in like the 1 hour information session that you may attend. But just make sure you connect with us. Ask as many questions as you want. Email us, speak with student ambassadors, try to get in contact with alumni, and speak with us advisors. We're here to help, and we're always happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, great advice. Let's turn now to Allison. What's somewhere that you like to eat near the Fuqua campus?
Oh gosh, so it depends on what you're in the mood for. Durham has been named one of the foodiest small towns. So probably my favorite is Pizzeria Toro, which is kind of around downtown Durham if you're interested in pizza. Or Coco Cinnamon is a great coffee shop. And if you really want to go full North Carolina, Dame's Chicken and Waffles is really good.
I always get hungry during this part of these sessions. All right, so what about a piece of general application advice?
I think about telling a story through your application. It may feel to you very different because we're all kind of asking some questions about who you are, of like, oh, here's my resume and here's my academic record and then here's my recommendation, but then there are my essays. But as we're reading it, it is all one coherent story. So tie those things together, things that may not seem to be professional experience, but that are still influencing what your goals are and what you want to do. So just think about your sort of entertaining an audience and tell that cohesive story.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that because this works well with what Brianna was talking about too, which is this idea that like before you apply, before you kind of put together things, it's really important to like what we call it clear admit, like take like a personal inventory and figure out like what are the sort of key elements in your background that you're looking to sort of put to the front as you apply, and where will they come out in these different pieces of the process, right? So that whether it's in an essay or your recommender is going to talk about you, or so really good advice, I think, Allison. Thanks for mentioning that, and Brianna as well, because you're both heading in that same direction. All right, so Allison, I know in the past we've used the Duke 25 random things about you as this section, but today you get to answer another school's question, which is something that you've done outside of work that brought you joy.
Yeah, so I am a golfer, and so I'm very excited that my team has just won our league for the year. So that brought me a lot of joy to bring home the trophy. And if you are a golfer, there's a lot of great places to play in Durham. So the Washington Duke Inn and Golf Club is walking distance from Fuqua, and it is the home of the Duke golf team. But if you're a golfer, it's beautiful, and if you're not a golfer, they have great drinks and food too.
Excellent. All right. Let's now turn to Jordan. Jordan, what about, I mean, this is a little bit of a challenging question in New York City, I guess, but anywhere that you like to eat near campus?
Yes, so there's two that came to mind. The first is called the Expat, which is, they describe themselves as a Southeast Asian gastropub, but they have amazing pad thai that I love with shrimp. And then the second is Dinosaur Barbecue, which if you know New York, it's one of the great barbecue joints in Harlem that actually is right across the street from campus. So those would be the two for me.
Okay. And how about a general piece of application advice?
Yeah, so similar to Allison, mine was going to be thoughtful about how you use the space. We know that, our essay is 500 words or 250 words or 50 characters. We recognize that it's not a lot of airtime or space, but there's a lot of ways that you can be creative to showcase who you are, whether it be through our hobbies and extracurricular sections, or by putting specific things on your resume and then putting other things in the employment sections. You can give us a really full picture and tell that story throughout, as Allison was saying before. So just be thoughtful and intentional with how you use the space.
Okay, excellent. And then last but not least, something that's given you joy outside of work recently.
Yes, so it is officially fall in the Northeast, or at least up here. And so I went apple picking this past weekend, and fall is my favorite season. So it brought me a lot of joy.
I had a discussion with my family the other day who all hate fall, and I was trying to explain to them why I love fall. And I said apple picking, apple cider donuts, Halloween, Thanksgiving, but they were in a little bit of post-summer blues, I think, this idea that the summer vacations are done. So
But when you've lived in New York and you sweat the whole summer,
right. Excellent. All right, Paige, now you've been patient as we went through, but what's the best place to eat on or near campus at Tepper?
Yeah, I would say within Tepper, we have Millie's ice cream. So you can smell them making waffle cones like throughout the entire building at almost all times, which is very dangerous working here. And they also have great coffee. So that's definitely my favorite nice little afternoon treat on campus. And I always run into so many Tepper students after they get out of class going there.
Got it. Now I know what I'm going to ask JR to do next time I'm on campus.
Yes, you definitely should.
All right. What about a piece of general application advice?
Yeah, I would definitely echo everyone else's advice. I think everyone gave, really good advice. Everyone here has a great MBA program, but really making sure the program fits you, not the other way around. And my current biggest piece of advice is to use AI/ChatGPT as a resource, not a replacement for writing your own essays and resume. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your authentic voice. ChatGPT has a cadence that you can kind of tell. So it's a resource, not a replacement.
Yeah, it's a decent brainstorming tool, like, but I think, yeah, you can tell kind of when stuff is written by it. So, all right. And what about something that gives you joy outside of work?
Yeah, this past weekend, I went to a performance of the musical Hamilton. It's currently showing in the theater district in Pittsburgh. So they have a lot of musicals coming in. You usually get discount tickets with your CMU ID for staff and students. So that's always a nice little treat.
Nice. And I just realized, Brian, I think I skipped asking you what gives you joy outside of work, and it's your school's essay. So I totally apologize for that. What is it now? You probably have thought about this quite a bit since you guys ask it of all your candidates.
I would say what brings me joy outside of work, I like thrifting. Um, I love like vintage shopping, consignment shopping, and I'm a volunteer at a museum, so I'm definitely a museum goer a lot. So,
You're in an excellent city to do that, given that all those
yep.
national museums are free and all near each other. So excellent.
Yes.
All right. So what we're going to do now is each of our panelists is kind enough to stick around, and we're going to have them go into breakout rooms where you, the attendee, can go and ask them questions about their programs or anything that you want to know about their application process. What we're going to do is have them jump backstage. I did want to sincerely thank Allison, Stephanie, Jordan, Brian, and Paige for doing this. I really appreciate your time today and all the insights that you shared. So we'll have you guys step backstage while we get our candidates ready to join you in your breakouts. But thank you so much for all your time today. All right, so attendees, stay here with me. We just want to make sure that our panelists get a minute to breathe as they get set up in the breakouts. We will post the breakouts here. One thing I should mention, if you're using Zoom via the web as opposed to the Zoom app, either on your phone or on your computer, you can't do breakouts. So make sure that you're using the Zoom app in order to jump around between breakouts. You can only be in one breakout at once, but it's very easy to navigate from one to the next. So you can, if you have a question for one school and then want to get a question answered by another, you can do that by bouncing around. A couple of quick things that I just wanted everyone to know who's joining us. First of all, I did want to thank you all for your time today. I know that all of you have jobs, or you're cutting into your evening or your morning routine to join us today. So appreciate that. While our panelists are getting their breakout rooms ready, I just wanted to remind you all that on clearadmit.com, we have this great tool called Livewire where you can kind of keep track of what's happening to other candidates. It's a great community. It's a pretty supportive community as well. So you can just kind of see who's applying where. It's all anonymous. You can find out, are people getting interviews at different schools, and just a really helpful sortable tool. So check that out on our website if you have not looked at it before. We also have a weekly podcast that I record with a colleague, Alex Brown, and I record that once a week. It's so much fun. We talk about applications. We talk about all the latest news and notes and sort of application strategy that you might want to know. It's just a great companion piece as you journey through this admissions process. And last but not least, on our website, there is an interview archive where people who've interviewed at programs have just left notes about like what it was like, and that's super helpful. And you can sort that archive by school and just get a sense to kind of maybe ease some of those nerves and understand like what is it like to interview at a given school and what kind of questions people are being asked. So trying to take the nerves out of that and make sure that you can be as prepared as possible. Really appreciate everyone making time. I know we've been doing this 3 weeks in a row. So those of you who joined us all 3 weeks, special thank you to you, shout out. But even if you just joined us for the first time today, welcome to the ClearAdmit community. Hopefully this is just the beginning of your journey with us. We're here to support you throughout the application process. And with that, I'm going to let us share in the chat here the breakouts. You also should be able to see them. We'll post them at the bottom here. There'll be a way for you to navigate in and out of those breakout rooms. So yeah, head off and ask questions of the visiting schools today. They were all terrific, and I'm sure they have more advice to impart. Best of luck to everyone as you work on your applications.